Hello, and welcome to Chroma Chronicles, where we explore the painful truth that sometimes the ultimate act of love is walking away. This is my true story. My son thought disrespect was power. One evening, at dinner, in front of his wife and children, he leaned across the table and spit on my face. The room went silent. Then someone laughed. He called me old, weak, and worthless. I sat there frozen, not from fear, but from something far colder. That was the night I stopped being his father and became a man with a plan. He thought that spit would end my pride. He didn't know I still owned everything he stood on. I gave him everything a father could give. From the day he was born, I worked shifts that broke my back and hands. My palms cracked from cold winters on construction sites, my knees ached from climbing ladders in the rain, and my lungs filled with dust and cement. But every bruise felt worth it when I came home and saw him running toward me with his little arms wide. When his mother died, I raised him alone. I cooked, cleaned, washed, saved. I skipped meals so he wouldn't know hunger. When he grew up, I helped him buy his first car. I co-signed every loan, paid the hidden costs, covered the insurance, and even helped him make his first mortgage payment. I told him to keep his name clean, to respect money, to stay humble. But slowly, I began to realize something terrible. He had learned how to take without feeling. Every favor I did became expected. Every bill I paid became invisible. They stopped saying thank you. I became a background, the man who existed only to provide. I stayed quiet. I told myself patience was love. Looking back now, I realized the truth. I didn't raise a man. I raised someone who thought compassion was weakness, and the night he spat on my face was not the first time he disrespected me. It was simply the last time I allowed it. All those years I gave him everything, my strength, my savings, my soul. But that night, when the spit touched my skin, I realized I had given him one thing too many, my forgiveness. It happened on a Sunday night. The table was full. His wife had invited her friends and parents. I sat quietly in my old sweater, the one with a small tear near the sleeve. Dinner began like any other. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, laughter that felt too polished to be real. Then it started. "Dad, maybe you should stop coming dressed like that. You make the place look cheap." The table laughed. "Old men like you should retire from everything, even eating," his friend said. He joined in. The jokes kept coming. He leaned closer. "You know what, Dad?" he said, voice dripping with arrogance. "You sit there like you still matter. But you don't. You're done. I don't owe you anything." The words cut deep, but before I could respond, he spat. It was sudden, warm, sharp. A drop hit my cheek and slid down to my collar. The table froze. His wife gasped softly, but not in horror and amusement. And then came the laughter. I reached for my napkin, wiped my face gently, and looked at him. I didn't speak, because in that silence, something inside me shifted forever. I realized in that instant that I wasn't a father anymore. I was a servant who had outlived his use. I stood up slowly, pushed my chair back, and walked to the kitchen. I could still hear them laughing behind me. His wife whispering, "He's so dramatic." The same people who had eaten food I bought, lived in a house I paid for. I stood by the sink, staring at my reflection in the window. The old man looking back wasn't weak. He was waiting. The humiliation didn't break me. It hardened me. If this deeply emotional story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Stoic Love so we can continue to share stories of quiet resilience. By morning, I knew exactly what I would do. That dinner didn't just break me. It built the man who would walk into a lawyer's office the next day, calm, deliberate, and ready to erase every trace of mercy he'd ever shown. I went to my small study, the one no one ever entered anymore. The old wooden drawers still held everything that truly mattered, not memories, but proof. Proof that I had never been foolish with my life. Proof that beneath my silence, there was structure. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the shoebox. Inside were property deeds, mortgage titles, account statements, and the house deed. I had kept ownership quietly, never transferring full control. It wasn't distrust back then, it was caution. But now, it was salvation. That paper was my weapon, my justice, my exit. I realized that everything he had, his house, his comfort, his so-called power, existed because of me. I picked up my pen and began writing, not a letter, just a list, a plan. The law makes no sound when it breaks someone. It just moves, slowly and decisively, like a glacier grinding through stone. The house was mine. The land beneath it was mine. The accounts were mine to freeze. I wasn't after revenge. I was after peace. I closed the notebook, and the humiliation of last night no longer burned. It had turned to steel. My son's laughter had taught me the last lesson of my life. Silence isn't weakness. It's warning. I woke up before sunrise. I didn't make breakfast like I usually did. I just dressed in my old coat, the same one they used to laugh at, and left quietly. My shoes echoed down the cold path as I walked toward the bus stop, holding a folder close to my chest. When I reached the lawyer's office, I placed the folder on the desk and asked for the senior partner. "It's time," I said. He didn't ask for an explanation. We drafted the papers slowly. The new sale agreement, the ownership transfer, the closure of joint accounts. He asked if I wanted to notify my son, but I shook my head. "No," I said. "Let the paper speak." I left the office and went straight to the bank. I showed the manager the updated legal documents and requested immediate action. I revoked my son's name from the joint account, froze his access, and redirected the funds into my private account. I closed the card he used for payments. Everything was now mine alone. He would wake up tomorrow to a world that no longer recognized him in it. If you find this story emotionally compelling, please share this video with someone who needs to be reminded of their own self-worth. Your support helps Stoic Love grow. By the time I stepped out of the bank, the sun was high. Back home, the house looked the same, but the papers in my coat told a different story. On paper, it was mine, entirely, legally, untouchably mine. That night, they laughed again in the living room, thinking they still ruled the space I'd built. I sat quietly in my room, listening. Their laughter was borrowed time. Morning came, and I heard the footsteps upstairs. Heavy, confident, careless. The sound of a man who still believed he owned everything. Then, a pause. Papers rustled. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. Irritation turned to disbelief. Disbelief turned to fear. The first notice he found was from the bank. The joint account had been closed. The funds were moved. His access revoked. He called the bank immediately, voice rising as I sat quietly in my chair. I didn't need to say a word. My silence was an answer sharper than any accusation. He left the house in a hurry, thinking he could fix it, but power doesn't bend paper. The transactions had already cleared, the transfers sealed. The real estate agent had already begun the process of listing the house. The property no longer belonged to him. It belonged to me. I had left hours before, quietly, walking down the road with a single suitcase and the dignity he couldn't take from me. I didn't wait to see him brake. The sound of his car engine fading into panic behind me was enough. I spent that night in a small motel on the edge of town. The room was plain but peaceful. The next morning, I would be gone for good. New city, new name, new peace. The aftershock didn't come all at once. The world my son had built on ego and borrowed pride began to fold in on itself, piece by piece. On the second morning after I left, the movers finished clearing the house. The locks were changed. The neighbors stood outside, whispering. They'd seen it all. They'd seen him boast, belittle. Now they saw him standing outside his own home, yelling at men who didn't even bother to answer. By the third day, his wife was gone. She left a note. "You've ruined everything." I heard later, through whispers, that he tried to find me. The police, the lawyer's office, the bank, they all told him the same thing. "Your father acted within his rights." That's the beauty of paperwork. It doesn't care about emotions. It just ends things. Legally. Quietly. Forever. We all need a lesson in self-respect. Subscribe to Stoic Love now and join our community dedicated to healing and finding hope in the darkest stories. The calls kept coming for weeks after that. I never picked up. I could hear the change in his voice. From anger to pleading, from pleading to desperation. I simply turned the phone off and went back to my coffee. The community turned cold toward him. People who once admired him now crossed the street to avoid him. He became what he had called me, worthless. Meanwhile, I settled into a small apartment by the sea. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No one here knew who I was or what I'd done. To them, I was just another quiet old man who walked to the pier every morning and fed the birds. And that was enough. Sometimes, I'd wonder what had become of him. The anger was gone, replaced by something deeper, clarity. I had given him everything, and he had turned it into cruelty. Now, I had taken everything back, not out of revenge, but to remind the world that even the quietest man can end a storm. I had given them comfort, time, and respect, but what I truly left behind was weakness. Now I live simply, breathe freely, and sleep deeply. I'm not waiting for forgiveness, and I'm not offering any. The world is calm when you stop expecting fairness. He spat on my face thinking it would break me. Instead, it woke me. If this story helped you realize the importance of self-dignity, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts. We love hearing from our Stoic Love family. I sold his house, took everything he built from my sacrifices, and never came back. Final thought. He mocked my worth and laughed at my silence. Until silence took everything he loved,